Welcome to Thursdays on the Stoop. I'm Julian, one of Blue Stoop's two co-directors, and we are a literary arts organization serving the greater Philadelphia area. Thursdays on the Stoop is a series of free workshops for and by the community. I actually started calling them skillshares. I gotta remember that update. Free skillshares for and by the community. And today's session is Learning to Lead with Alison Lubar. Alison teaches high school English by day and yoga by night. They are a queer, non-binary, biracial, Nikkei femme whose life work has evolved into bringing mindfulness practices to young people. They're the author of two full-length poetry books, The Other Tree, winner of Harbor Edition's Laureate Prize, and Metamorphosis, as well as four chapbooks, Philosophers Know Nothing About Love, Queer Feast, Sweet Euphemism, and It Skips a Generation. Alison is also a member of the 2025 Poets and Writers Get the Word Out Poetry cohort. Find out more at AlisonLubar.com, which I'll put in the chat, or on Twitter at the Originalison, all one word. And with that, Alison, please take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Julian. Thank you so much, Blue Stoop. I am so excited to be here today with you in community, even after a full day of high school teaching. This is Learning to Lead Writing Workshop 101. And before we start, just to note that this is a 101 workshop. There is so much we can cover. Possibly stay tuned to see if there will be more pedagogical offerings. But this is just meant to be an overview, and I'm really excited to lead you through this. So, a little bit of my background, I've been an educator for 18 plus years, but that just means teaching public high school. I have my MSEd from Penn. I've been a TA for undergrad classes. I've been a grad assistant. I've been teaching yoga for almost 10 years. I've taught martial arts through high school, poetry workshops with Blue Stoop and otherwise, undergrad workshops at colleges, period. That's just all to say that, I know what I'm doing and I'm still learning, but I do know what I'm doing. I'm also on the programs and pedagogy team for Blue Stoop on their board, and those are my collections that Julian mentioned, and a forthcoming micro chap with Bull City Press in June, which I'm very excited about. All right. This is why we are here. Our objectives today are, by the end of this workshop, you will be able to generate workshop ideas, learn to structure an hour-long workshop, explore your identity as a teacher, and establish your teaching philosophy or your pedagogy, and really think about who you are in the classroom, because you're not just bringing content, you're bringing yourself. You're not just teaching poetry, you're teaching human beings. So our agenda is really threefold. We'll discuss first craft, talk about pedagogy, creating objectives, lesson structure. Then we'll get into content possibilities for your own workshop. That's where you'll start to do some brainstorming. And then finally, the actual creation. So craft plus content is your workshop. We'll talk a little bit about writing a class description if we have time, but if not, there are lots of resources that I will share with you. So, what you will actually, class expectations first. I suggest, because of the volume of students that we have, use the chat, or if you want to say something, if you want to come off of mute, just write the word stack, STACK, in the chat. And that way I know to call on you and say, for example, Judy, please unmute and share with us what you are going to say. But whatever you put in the chat, I will read out loud. If you do not want your name read with your response, just let me know in your response, and I will obviously respect that. But participate however feels comfortable with you today. So you can choose to not say anything. You can contribute like in every single question. That's great. But just, do what feels right for you in this moment. It's been a day. Use I statements, make sure you share the air, and all experiences and backgrounds are welcome. If you have been teaching for 40 years, amazing, you're welcome here. If you have never even thought about teaching a workshop and it's scary, amazing, you're welcome here. So all experience levels. All right, so you will need something to write on or something to write with. And that's it. So whether that's a Google Doc, whether that is pen and paper, just a couple things that you might want to write down. A quick little icebreaker just for the chat is I would love your name and your pronouns. I will put mine in my Zoom, John. What brought you here? Or what's something you learned recently? So I'll give you a moment or so to add some of those in the chat. You are in the right place, Merrick. I love that. All right, let me rename myself with my pronouns. Because some of us are Philly folks, some of us are out of Philly folks. So Julian is helping with Zoom, also an aspiring teacher and excited to build pedagogy skills. Sean said, I brought him here. Elizabeth said, desire to teach, awaken people to the power of their own voice. Oh, love that. Judy yeah, so it's like questioning myself. Love that with the whys. Blake said, I'm interested in teaching writing workshops with my community in SWVA. There's great poetry and Mike. Love to facilitate more writing spaces. Yes, we love it. Um, Anna Ellen's from the Philly area. Ooh, Samantha, Sam is running her first workshop soon. Very exciting. Hi, Adrian. I know you. Adrian is thinking about tutoring and curious about how to build engagement with younger students. Uh, Merrick said that they were brought here by a Blue Soup newsletter and promoted with this promoted, and you've been manifesting this opportunity. I'm excited you're here too. We have Akin currently running a writing workshop for organizers, but want to level it up. Yes, love that. Devin here to learn more about writing and teaching. Hope to walk away with more clarity to use this in everyday skills. Rachel, I came here because you always want to learn more. Love that. Right, Toby, excited to learn more about ways to lead. This is amazing. You can keep going in the chat. I'm not going to read any more of that just so we can get going. But yeah, like connect. Oh my gosh, Michelle, that's so sweet. I love dinosaurs as well. All right. So, just two little quotes to frame this that have really stuck with me through my journey as an educator. The idea that teaching is the highest form of learning, as a clap back to that idea of people who say that those who can't do teach. Well, they have never been in a room full of ninth graders. But to teach something, you have to know it. And if you want to teach something, but you're like, oh, I don't know this super, super well, teaching is also a type of learning. So, in the process of learning to teach, you will learn that content better. Also, the idea that education is not filling a bucket, but lighting a fire. So, it's not just facts and facts and facts and facts, even though that can be inspiring, but really igniting that passion, that desire, like someone in the chat mentioned already. I don't know if I can find it quickly. Oh, yes. Elizabeth said to awaken people to the power of their own voice. Um, and we all want more autonomy and freedom and collective liberation, period. All right. So I would love to begin with your why. So about 3 minutes, and I'll set a timer. Think of your experiences learning. What made those experiences good? What made some of those experiences bad? And this will inform your pedagogy. And pedagogy is just a way to say your teaching philosophy. So, about 3 minutes, just jot your thoughts down. We'll have a quick little discussion after that. And your time starts now. Right. And as you may have noticed, I pasted the wrong question into the chat. But one big thing about teaching is you just roll with it. And one thing I do want to touch on before we get to this journal and our discussion is this is a class for all types of learning, whether it is art, whether it is something with music, whether it is writing, whether it is whatever. This is genreless. All right. So for discussion, so how do those experiences that you just journaled about, how do those affect who you want to be in the classroom, or what were your answers to those previous questions? So what made some experiences good, what made some bad, and then how do those affect who you want to be in the classroom? So you can write stack in the chat if you'd like to be called on, or you can just put your answer right in the chat and I will read it for everyone. All right, Sean, go ahead, start us off.
Thank you so much, Alison. Um, One thing I thought back to was math class and how much I always hated that class. And one reason I did is I had a teacher who tried to shake off people who weren't good at math. Like basically gave us content we never would have done in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. And she said, "Oh, I did this deliberately to get people to like flunk out of class, basically." And you're taking a subject that I think a lot of people aren't motivated by and making it even more remote, which I think is horrible as a teacher.
Mhm.
So my thing is, I think people are going to take different things from class and that's okay, but I want everyone to walk away with something if I let a workshop or a course, right? Like it may be different than what I intended, and that's okay, especially in creative, but I don't want anyone to feel left out, basically.
Absolutely. And Sean, you're even starting to talk about something which is really important in education, which is inclusivity. However students come to your class, there is something that they can learn and take away, and they feel valued. And also, you never want to trick your students. Like I never give pop quizzes. I just think it breaks some kind of trust between teacher and student in that way. Great answer. Adrian, go ahead.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, I've had positive. Oops. The best teachers I had were invested in social connections and relationships. So I'm thinking about tutoring younger students and eventually teaching college if I'm accepted into a grad program. So I think kind of like the inclusivity theme, I want to encourage younger students to become critical thinkers, writers, and readers in a way that like speaks and is accessible to their generation. I know it is very hard to teach youth right now, so I want to be very intentional about how I approach that.
Yeah, and what you're saying about intentionality is so important. Also, what I heard is like building community and even that getting to know you kind of thing and getting to know, again, like you're not teaching poetry, you're teaching children, or you're not teaching film, you're teaching like creatives. So making sure that it's a welcoming space. I'm excited for you. That's going to be phenomenal. Aiken, and please like correct me on your pronunciation.
Hi, Akin.
Akin.
Um, and yeah, I think getting the chance to do some sort of like role plays or a chance to practice an activity, I feel like has been really helpful for my brain. And I think an inverse of that is, especially with math, because once you brought up math, my brain was like, oh God, not again. Just like not understanding the why of something. Like I had a pretty great, like we took algebra over the summer and had a professor who actually like would teach us like the why and the principles behind different things, and even use like her family life as like, as metaphor, as explaining like negative numbers and how they interact with each other and stuff like that. So I think yeah, understanding like the underlying principles of things and having a chance to actually like play with them has been like really helpful for my understandings.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that understanding the why and always and to add that to what Adrian said too, the idea of making sure your students are comfortable asking the why. And you as an educator knowing like, oh, like I don't know everything, but like let's Google it. Let's figure this out. How can we add this to the understanding that we have? And something that you mentioned at the beginning of your response was like different methods of learning, moving around the room if you are in person, utilizing different methods of inputting new information, whether students are reading something or they, whenever I'm teaching a novel and I teach AP Lit, in high school, I always give my students an option for an audiobook. Because sometimes they are doing a bunch of things and doing childcare and working and mowing the grass and walking the dog and taking care of things that I have no idea of. So giving multiple pathways to success and multiple ways to access material is really important for, again, like inclusivity. Really great answer. Some of the answers that we have in the chat, and then we'll move on after these, is Anne Ellen says, feeling valued, being in a space where no question is stupid or silly. Absolutely. There is no stupid question. And actually, back to Sean's math example, if a student doesn't remember how to do something that you feel like they should know how to do, you teach them, right? They're you're a teacher. So with my students, they're seniors. If they're like, I don't remember MLA format. Okay, let's go over it. Okay, I still don't remember MLA format. Okay, let's go over it. It's still not sticking. Okay, let's go over it. Right. So it's takes it's brave to ask questions. And so having that as our foundation. And Keen says, as a bad math learner, that is terrifying to hear. Yeah, same. Calculus is where my brain taps out, or pre-calc. I'm just like, nope. Um, Devin says, good experiences. I was given autonomy and room to ask questions or approach the subject in a way that worked for me. I was also allowed to move and learn at the pace that worked for me. Yeah. So really letting students customize their pace in a way. And if you have different levels, that necessarily is going to happen. Like in teaching at the yoga studio, I have some students who want to like feel the burn right away. And I have some students who just want to like roll around on their mats. That's great. They're all welcome, right? I can adapt the class for everyone there. Bad experiences. Devin says there was too much force expectation from the teacher, no real support when needed, or the teacher was condescending and gave no room for flexibility that aligned with what I felt I needed. Absolutely. I always think of the Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you've made them feel. Um, Chital, and again, if I mispronounce your name, like correct me, add it in the chat, etc. Says, as a remote workshop participant, I'd want students who are caregivers to be able to access material even when it's hard for them to be involved. Yes. So again, accessibility, and you never know what's happening outside of that hour workshop, and you don't even know what's happening during that as well. There may be like a toddler in the background who needs attention, etc. So having flexibility with that. Merrick says negative experiences I associate with inaccessibility, including technology culture, are insufficient time, environment distractions, sensory triggers, unclear directions, instructions, information, objectives, communication, insufficiently resourced. Yeah, if students are hungry, they can't learn. So it may seem like, well, if I'm running a poetry workshop, why would I bring granola bars? Like, if you can, like, do it, right? If you can, do it. Um, Positive experiences I associate with learners and facilitators are rested and resourced, interested, engaged, safe, supported, curious, nourished, autonomy, agency-led, relationship building slash based. Yes, all of these things. I mean, like you're already doing it. Like you know what it feels like to be seen and valued as a student and the places in which you learn best. So then creating that for your students, knowing that that's just the foundation. And then you'll learn how to really tailor your craft to all students. Right. Amazing. So my personal pedagogy is the idea of be who I needed when I was younger. I was a hot mess in high school. All I wanted to do was party. And I think I needed a lot more teacher understanding, some structure. I was still like doing this stuff, but I think I needed more of that interpersonal support. Reinforcing critical thinking skills of the next generation, especially in the face of AI, which I think is connected to what Adrian mentioned as well. Writing is healing and writing is mindfulness. It's a type of meditation. I teach an elective at the high school where I teach um, with mindfulness and meditation, where we focus on writing as meditation. So it's still an English department elective. Creativity and the humanities build connections for collective liberation. So not just compassion, but for collective liberation. And also they build community. So, inclusivity questions to consider. How will you be inclusive of the needs of diverse learners? A lot of this comes with experience, but some of the basic things or ways I can point you to are utilizing the chat and the slides. As you saw, my little error of copy and pasting the wrong question into the chat, but I remedied that. I was like, oops, my bad. So I have a copy of my slideshow in front of me too, so I can just copy and paste directly from that. If you are in person, give printed resources. A dear poet friend of mine, Shannon Frost Greenstein, when she does a reading, she always has printed copies for accessibility needs and for participants who want to see a poem on a page and understand it better in that way. Consider how will you make your classroom a welcoming space and a safe learning environment. Set expectations for discussion, like I did in the beginning. Make sure you use I statements, and also give multiple methods of response, like using stack in the chat. Like you can type your response right in the chat. With my students, we use Google Classroom, and I have a daily check-in that all of them answer, and then I give them an opportunity to talk if they want. But I hear back from all of them because they're typing that answer. And consider how will you resolve conflict. This may be more so for not adults, but also adults can get into it a little bit. So that's just something to consider. I know that's something we ask people who are applying to teach for Blue Stoop as well. So again, these are not necessarily discussion questions for us, but things to think about in terms of your own pedagogy, um, your own like growth as a teacher. So a check-in. What are some adjectives or descriptors of who you want to be as an educator or a facilitator? And put them in the chat, just listing adjectives, listing ways that you want to be described as an educator or the adjectives you're kind of moving towards. And seeing if we've gotten some of these from your responses already. Yeah, encouraging, playful. Love that, Julian. Open-minded, Sean. Absolutely. Open, Blake. Yes. Rachel says kind, supportive, and understanding. Yes. Merrick says intentional, engaged, responsive, compassionate, curious, accommodating. The curiosity piece as a yoga teacher. Oh, and Akeen also says curious, humorous. So the curiosity piece is such a great way to combat imposter syndrome, to combat feeling like, oh, I'm not enough, I don't know enough, but being curious, oh, like how does that connect to this thing? And then that's an opportunity to engage with your students. Iris says engaging, open, warm, encouraging. Toby says community builder, respectful. Adrian says compassionate +1. Yes, like bump that up, compassionate. Amazing. And those are things to continually think of. How do you want to show up in this space? Because your vibe sets the tone. And it even comes to small things like considering the learning environment. Is it too cold? Can you adjust the heat? Is there a window that can be open? Is there a weird smell? What can you do to make the environment as welcoming as possible? And some things are out of your control, and if they are, make it a joke, right? Bring some humor. I also see Anne Ellen saying, getting to see that aha moment on the student's face. Yes, the moment where like the flame of inspiration has been ignited behind their eyes. Devin, fully present. Yes, absolutely. Phone on silent, etc. Um, ooh, Allison's giving me several of those. Thanks, Barrick. Devin, yes, Devin says fully present. Amazing. So let's keep rolling. So elements of lesson or workshop planning. These are things to consider. This is what you would learn in earlier in a teaching education course or teaching education program that you would learn like pretty early on. So one way to consider structuring your lesson or whatever you're teaching is there are three components to that. There's new material that you're introducing, whether that is a type of poem, whether that is a painting technique, whether that is a type of media, whether it's a whole other genre. So you're going to introduce it and look at a couple examples in guided practice. So once you essentially model, okay, this is an example of a villanelle. These are the components of it. You would have guided practice and say, okay, can anyone identify like what makes this a villanelle? How does the use of the repetition of that line reinforce something about the meaning of the work as a whole. And then you give students time for independent practice, which is work with or using that concept. So maybe then they're writing villanelles, but even before that, maybe they're brainstorming what lines can they use for repetition, or what rhymes are interesting to them. Or if it's a new painting technique, it's getting used to those new materials. So there's play built into it. So you could even consider new material is learning the rules of the game, guided practice is playing together, and independent practice is creating on your own. So there are ways to adapt this to everything that you're learning. And this is a basic pedagogical concept that phys ed teachers, art teachers, English teachers, math teachers, that just is one way that you can approach teaching. And built in with that is that idea of support through guided practice as well. And the balance and distribution of these can be different. So in new material, most of undergraduate classes, or I think of like Psychology 101, the professor is going to lecture for like maybe like 90% of that class. It's possible, right? But if you're in a workshop, you may have, if you're, I don't know, at a writing conference workshop, you may spend the majority of time in independent practice, right? So you determine what your students' needs are and what you want to create with them, or how you want to curate that experience. So another element that you may have recognized from the very beginning of this presentation is creating an objective. So by the end of class, students will be able to, or SWABOT. And there were 4 objectives for this workshop. I'm not going to quiz you on them because I don't know if I remember them, but I can scroll up to my personal copy of this. And so our objectives were to generate workshop ideas, to learn to structure an hour-long workshop, establish your teaching pedagogy, and explore your identity as a teacher. So think of, what is your goal? Is it a generative workshop? Is it writing time, lecture, and discussion? Is it informative? Is it lecture? Is it Q&A? Is it having experts in their craft discussing what they do? Think of the conferences you've been to. Some of those are generative workshops. Some of those are where you're just sitting and listening. Some of those are Q&A. This is what teachers generally use to create objectives. So this is Bloom's taxonomy, and we see the evolution from knowledge all the way up to evaluation. You may not be doing evaluation in your classes, or in the sessions you're teaching. You may not be doing analysis. If you are running a writing workshop, that'll be my example, you're probably on the application column, which is like apply, complete, construct, dramatize, employ. And this is just a list of other words that you can use as you are creating your objectives, but it can be as simple as write, right? Writing is one word to create that objective. Let me put this link in the chat for you as well. Copy, paste. And so again, like our goal with all of these is critical thinking. Creation is a type of critical thinking. Writing is a type of critical thinking. So now, actually, any questions before we continue? You're also always welcome to put questions in the chat, and I can find a good point to pause and to address those. So now, the fun part, the creation part. We are going to get to creating your workshop, or generating seeds of ideas for workshops. Seeds as borrowed from Amy Beth Sisson, who's also on the pedagogy team. So brainstorm time. You will have 5 minutes to answer these 3 questions. First is, what genres of writing do you feel experienced about or have experienced in? Or just well, it doesn't have to be writing, right? It could be art, it could be film, it could be, the world is your oyster. But we are a writing organization. What multi-genre topics do you feel inspired by? Maybe mythology, philosophy, food, art, nature, tarot, technology. I've taught sessions on mythology as methodology, on writing about food. I've taught titling workshops. And finally, where/when have you found success as a writer, or what do you feel that you're an expert at or in. So I will put these questions correctly in the chat and set a timer for 5 minutes. Ooh, it kind of is pasting them a little ugly, but we'll see what happens. Oh, there we go. All right, 5 minutes. All right, like 40 seconds or so left. And if you finish those and you're like, and you're feeling a little bored, you can also think about like, what would you want to teach? What are you interested in learning more about? All right, that is our timer. So, what genres of writing do you feel excited about? What topics do you feel inspired by? And where have you found success as a writer? Or what do you feel you're an expert in? So I'd love to hear from some of you in the chat. And also, like, no imposter syndrome. If you're like, I am really good at this, amazing. Love that. Yes. So Merrick says genres of writing are poetry, page, and stage. Yes, both are so important. Flash fiction, technical writing, business, copywriting, film, creative producer, spiritual alchemy. Oh, I would love to take a class in that. Watercolor artist, somatic awareness, embodied movement. Yes, breathwork, yoga, art, alchemy. What topics do you feel inspired by? Oracular mysticism, nature, worlds of non-human animals and beings, mycology, yes, me too. World building, ritual systems, love that. And where have you found success? Still compiling, but integrations of those, love that. Would anyone else like to respond to any of those questions? It could be any, it could be all. I mean, Merrick, I want to take a class already. It's great. Yeah, Iris, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, wait, let me disconnect. She's on. Can you hear me?
Yes, yep, you're great.
Okay, great. Okay, so I was still like writing when you called time, but I do have some information.
Great.
So as far as genres that I feel excited about, and or have experience in, things that I personally do and have experience in would be like poetry, prose, journaling, storytelling. Playwriting is more of a thing that I'm excited to gain experience in. I am an actress, so I have experience with plays in that regard, but I haven't written one, so I'm really interested in that. And also forms of art that I engage in are collage, intuitive art, or like line drawing, and painting. Things that I'm inspired by and topics that I enjoy: astrology, particularly lunar astrology, natal chart analysis, metaphysical and spiritual aspects of birth preparation, family history, genealogy, and that was as far as I got.
Iris, what abundance. Okay. Like and I love that and even like and also, like with Merrick's response, like the way that so many of those go together, the way that those are complementary of each other is really exciting. So that's something that all of you can consider too, is how can you combine like two of these things that are that you're really drawn to, or something you know you're really good at and something you want to explore, and then have introducing that element of play. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, so good. Akeen says genres are op-ed, personal essay, short fiction, flash fiction, book review. Yeah. TV movie analysis, excited about screenwriting but limited experience. Topics, political organizing. Yes. Philosophy, science fiction, fantasy, sadness. Oh, yes. Feel that. When Wherever You Found Success, at Momentum, The Guardian, Waging Nonviolence, Dissent Magazine, This is the Revolution podcast, expert in translating complicated ideas and boiling them down. Yes. And in so in teaching world, we have this like, I don't know, it's like a gross word to me, but we call that like chunking in teaching. Like it just gives me like the ick. But yeah, so much of teaching is translating a concept or idea into different ways that students can understand it and then make it their own and create something with that. Excellent, awesome response. Chital says, genres feels excited about our novel and short fiction. Yes. Um, multi-genre, or what topics do you feel inspired by? Philosophy, parenting, food, loneliness. These like emotional components in addition to like the other topics, like you're already, the workshop is like building itself, right? So like exploring loneliness through food writing or something like that. And that's how you start generating a title. Um, and where they've found success when your book won an award. Yes, congrats. I'd love to teach about rejection. Yes, finishing a novel, writing as a parent, character coaching, experimenting with point of view. This is so exciting. And we'll end with Toby. So Toby says, What genres he feels excited about are playwriting and screenwriting. Love that. What topics do you feel inspired by? Writing for young adults, figuring out structures, genre bending, organization structure. Yeah, so I feel like you're a writing architect. Love that idea. Oh, and Toby's teaching a class this spring. Yeah, I was like, I know your name sounds familiar. But yeah, so like the architecture of writing, that's a title. It's all yours. And so he said, where have you found success? Helping fellow writers more clearly hone in on the thematic statements that they're trying to write out, helping create effective accountability groups for writers, and building communities of creatives. Yes, very community minded. We love to see it. Incredible. All right. So now what we've all been waiting for, creation time. So I'm going to ask you to create 2 or 3 objectives based on your content focus. So we're combining what we just discussed with possibly Bloom's taxonomy, or what objectives, what do you want your students to be able to do when they leave your class? So yeah, I said it off the dome, and then it's also in my slideshow. Consider, what do you want your participants to have done or accomplished by the end of your discussion of your session. So this is called backwards design. So we're thinking about, what do we want them to do or be able to do, or whatever verb by the end, and then planning backwards from that. So I'm going to say like 4 minutes just for sake of time, and create a couple objectives. And if you want, in your writing these out, you can type them right in the chat to have them ready for on the go. And then we'll discuss those in 3 minutes. And I will put that prompt in the chat as well. And then the link to Bloom's taxonomy, I will add again. We have about a minute left. We may have a visit from oh, here he is, my son. Okay. Uh, so what objectives did you come up with? You can add them to the chat. That may be the quickest. Oh, Merrick, yes. All right, so Merrick says, reconnect with creative channels and take away the practice methodology as ongoing resource. Yes. Create safety in body and brain environment for creative expression that can be revisited. Yeah. So sustainable practice in that way. Create something they can keep, whether it's a poem, a painting, a photo, a memory of how they moved and or were shifted through the experience. Love that. Michelle says to link science/STEM/STEAM topics with creative writing, especially poetry. Love that. There is so much great writing about science. So many poets, like including myself, are inspired by it. And I think there used to be a big like national poetry and science program that was put on maybe by Maria Popova, if I'm recalling right. But yes, love that. Any other thoughts to put in the chat? Yeah, Sean says idea for a future workshop. Poetry as protest. Love this. Um, why are why are people harsh on political poetry? Does it last? Is it art? Yeah, examine a cause that's important to you. Evaluate examples of political or protest poetry. Investigate what works or does not work in those poems. Consider its timelessness and create your own protest poem that will last. Do I sense a Thursday on the Stoop proposal coming? I love that. Yes to Maria Popova. Akin says practice writing out what they think and are ready to prove about what should be done in this political moment. Yeah, examine and analyze bits of history to the present, draw and their own thoughts to draw out conclusions and challenge themselves to revise their thinking as they go along. Complete a draft of an article that captures this. Yes, love this as like this end like product. I don't love the word product. This John, we're a Philly group, this John. Devin says to provide opportunities for reflection and healing. Love that. And oh yeah, Merrick added a recommendation there. Love that. I'm going to definitely investigate that. Okay. So rolling along, we are moving very quickly towards the end. So just a couple, oh, right. More questions that you have. As you can see, it has been a long teaching day for me. But you did this brilliantly. Yeah. So putting it all together. So this is whether you want to take a photo of this, whether you want to write this down. This is generally the structure that I use when I am teaching an hour-long writing workshop. I give an intro to new material, introduce the topic, read a mentor text and discuss, then some kind of guided practice, a second example, and more discussion, independent practice with brainstorming, elaboration, and writing time, 1 or 2 rounds depending, and then an opportunity to share work. So you can always take out the opportunity to share work. You can always add a third sample. Yes, so this recording will be shared. It'll be posted on Blue Stoop's YouTube channel. You can always add a third sample. I sometimes have a third sample in just so I can monitor the amount of time that is left, or we can always go back to it at the end. You can always add more writing time. You can say, okay, go back to your brainstorm list, write about a second seed of a poem that you were interested in exploring. So that's generally how I have run all of my workshops for Blue Stoop, that I've done the hour-long ones. And all of those are also on the YouTube channel. All the workshops that I do are posted. They're also on my website. And with our remaining time, which is 5 minutes, and I will get to Blake's question in a moment. So couple places for extension. So you can begin researching or compiling mentor texts. Start with what you love. That will always like lead you in the right direction. So, and you also teach better and speak better and write better about what you love anyway. Begin to write your course description. So if you're like, how do I write a course description? Look at Thursdays on the Stoop sessions. Look at our course descriptions on Blue Stoop's website. Look at other places that have writing workshops and their descriptions, there probably is a kind of template, how long it is, what you can expect to have done by the end of it. There's always an objective worked in there in some way. You can also brainstorm places to propose your workshop, like Blue Stoop, like we said, community centers, libraries, coffee shops, literary organizations, after school programs. After school programs, you might need some kind of clearance for that, but there are organizations that do that. If you go to a coffee shop every single Wednesday, maybe you ask the owners, hey, can I put up a flyer and run a little workshop here on Wednesdays from 5 to 6 p.m.? Or like talk to libraries as the heart and soul of community, so important. All right, quickly getting to Blake's question, and so we will have a moment for Julian to do his spiel at the end. Blake asks, do you have thoughts on how to narrow or broad to make objectives in workshops? Is it better for a new instructor to have a narrower topic, e.g., focus on short fiction, instead of being open to people writing whatever they want during the section? Yeah, I would say the more specific, the better, because then you'll really, then from a getting it to run point of view, then you are really clear about what you're providing, which an organization wants to know. If it's like, oh, a poetry workshop, okay, well, what does that mean? But even if you just said, okay, a generative poetry workshop, okay, a formal poetry workshop, it also depends on your comfortability level too. If you have a really like niche and specific interest, then like consider that. I would think of like all those things that Merrick mentioned too, and combining any of those, or the idea of, oh, sorry, my brain just blanked. We just went dead. And sometimes that happens in teaching too, and you're just like transparent about it. Um, so I think I'll put it this way, your focus will narrow as you work on your slides, as you work on your workshop. In prepping for this, I had a whole list of slides and things to include. And as I was partway through planning this, I was like, oh, let me go back to that idea of the content, and I use like 3 C's to make it like a little jazzy. So those are ways to organize it. So it's going to happen in the practice. Like teaching is a practice, teaching is an art, teaching is a science. And the more you do it, the better you'll feel about it. Maybe you start with a PowerPoint night with your friends, right? What a great idea. And I think we are at time. So this is my contact info. Feel free to email me. There's contact info on my website if you forget that. Yeah, I'm around. I'm here. Thank you so much. Julian.
Amazing. Thank you, Allison. My Wi-Fi is real bad, so hopefully I don't break up too much as I'm speaking. So if you hear me speaking extra slowly, that's me trying to accommodate a lag. Thank you to Allison for this fantastic session. I know I learned a lot. Seems like you all did too. I'm going to share some links in the chat. I've got so much going on at Blue Stoop. I'm going to try and tell you about all of it in about 1 minute. First off, Thursdays on the Stoop is accepting calls for proposals for sessions like this one. It's year round. It's a rolling call, so there isn't a deadline. However, I am currently in the process of booking them out for the spring. So if you kind of want to, if you want me to be considered for this semester, this is a really good time to pitch. So one of those links I just pasted in the chat is how to pitch a links or where to pitch a TOTS Skillshare. That's bluestoop.org/teach. And actually, in the section for like the description of like what we're looking for, there's a link to a video where we go on at length about exactly what we're looking for and give you a lot of great advice specifically for Thursdays on Stoop. So watch that. I think it's really helpful. I hope it's really helpful. So check that out. I think the advice there often says, the gist of it is like, we don't want to have our classes and our Thursdays on the Stoops compete with each other. So I would recommend pitching something that is not the exact class that we're running right now. That's another tip for you. But because it's rolling, if it is the same as a class we're running right now, we'll just keep it in the running for later. We'll still consider you for summer, fall, next year. We'll hang on to those proposals. There's also a feedback survey, so you can let Allison know what a fantastic job they did, and let us know if you want to see more sessions, like pedagogy type sessions like this one. There's a link to our upcoming events. There are several next week. So next week, we are bringing back our creative co-working sessions, which happen pretty much every Wednesday from 3:30 to 5:30 on Zoom. It's just a time to get some work done with friendly faces on the screen. I highly recommend checking those out. All of this is, of course, free. There is another Thursdays on the Stoop like this one. It is called Back in a Flash with Mansi Bagwati, and that one is about writing flash fiction as a way to reinvigorate your writing practice after some time away. And there is also a happy hour at Dalek Restaurant in West Philly. All of that is free. We would love to see you there. So for dates, click that events link. And last but not least, our winter fundraiser, we extended the deadline until January 25th. The funds from this fundraiser support scholarships, financial aid, and free programs like this one. So if you'd like to be a part of that, check it out. There's an opportunity to get tickets to our end of winter semester celebration on the 25th. There'll be food, drink, all included in your ticket. It's going to be a really great showcase of our talented students and a nice time to meet other writers in our area. I have been talking extensively. I'm going to cut myself off here, but do check those links out. I'll put this on YouTube for you to watch later. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you to Alison for being awesome. And I will talk to you all soon. Happy Thursday.
Thank you. Take care.
Sure,
Happy
thanks,
learning.
Allison.